Welcome to Ayurveda and Spirituality with your host, Alakananda Ma, a renowned Ayurvedic expert and a graduate of a top London medical school. She is the principal of Alandi Ayurveda Gurukula, a unique apprenticeship-style school in Boulder, Colorado. She is a spiritual mother, teacher, flower essence maker, and storyteller. Join us as we uncover the timeless principles of Ayurveda, discover practical tips for enhancing vitality, and explore the deeper dimensions of spirituality that intertwine with the ancient science of life.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Satsang. Satsang is a meeting of hearts, a gathering of friends to inquire into the truth. And today we're going to talk about creating a healing space. And I really can't tell you how many people that are healers, therapists, etc., have come into the healing room and said, I want one of these. So, creating a healing space we're lucky if we can have a nice healing space. So the first thing about creating a healing space is obviously that it has to have some kind of privacy where people can talk freely. That's why we've slowly added to our privacy, like having what's it called, curtains that block the sound. I can't remember. Soundproofing curtains that we put in between the rooms and the even the closets, so that the sound was muted. A lot of people like white noise machines. Typically, a lot of therapists will have a white noise machine like right outside their office to kind of, I guess, make it quiet, feel quieter in there. We were using a white noise machine for a little while until Claudia realized that it didn't make noises go away. It didn't erase the noises. Then we found the curtains were much better than white noise machines. Um, so just having somewhere that has some privacy and also, as much as possible, some kind of quiet. Of course, that's not always completely possible. Um, and then introducing plants and having some kind of view of or access to nature. If you can think about how incredibly squirmily boring it is in a standard like doctor room, with the like no windows and the chair and that you sit in and the couch, and it's like incredibly boring because there's nothing to look at. There's no glimpses of anything. So um school used to be like that when I was very, very little at St. Mary's Infant School. Schools were designed so the windows were Victoria, this was a Victorian school. The windows were sufficiently high that 5 to 7-year-olds could not see out of them and get distracted, which makes school boring because you can't see any nature unless you except in playtime in the playground, but you can't see any nature. So some kind of plants are really, really helpful on many levels for a healing space. They do actually purify the air, especially spider plants are really, really good for purifying the air. But generally, plants are engaging in purifying the air and refreshing the air. And during daytime, they're adding oxygen to the air, not at night. At night, they're doing respiration and putting out carbon dioxide just like everyone else. But in the daytime, they're adding oxygen. They're adding a lot of prana and a lot of vibrancy. And they also can, they're healers in their own right. I used to Uh, we just lost our jade plant. It lived for quite a while, but I had two over the years, decades that I've been in the healing room, I've had two jade plants, and I trained them with flower essences. So that I have a trained jade plant, which is trained to participate in the healing process and support and protect me. Jade plants are very, being succulents. That's the kind of thing that they're very good at. Having a glimpse of nature through a window, having daylight, these kind of things create a space that feels healing. Betsy, my counselor, is into orchids. So she always, I don't know how she does it, but there are always blooming orchids I think she kind of rotates them out, but there are always orchids in her room that are fully blooming and look completely amazing and definitely help you to feel like somehow cozy or uh, taken care of in the room. Also, rocks and crystals can be helpful too. Places where rocks can absorb energy, crystals can radiate energy. Bloodstone can be very good because it will absorb a lot of negativity. Crystals can brighten up the energy, so those can be nice additions to a healing room. And some people like to have little fountains or waterfalls. I used to have one in the healing room. I don't have one at the moment, but I had one for quite a while. But definitely you'll find some people in their healing rooms or spaces like to plug in a little like waterfally or fountainy thing, and then that's also adds a little soothing sound, and it does add to the prana and refresh the energy. Then we might want to have an altar somewhere that we remember our teachers, the, the lineage of our healing. Obviously, in an Ayurvedic context, we always want to have Lord Dhanvantari in our healing space, as we also always have Lord Dhanvantari in our classroom space too. You may or may not remember the story told me by a colleague who was having a Dhanvantari puja at his house, which is done, I forget if it's the day before or the day after Diwali, but it's the day before, because Lord Dhanvantari comes out of the ocean of milk right before Lakshmi comes out of the ocean of milk. So this woman said, I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner. He met her at the farmer's market or whatever, and he said, oh, come to my Dhanvantari puja. And she said, who's Dhanvantari? That should not be happening. We should know who is the patron of Ayurveda. We should know who is the healer of the gods and the god of healing, which is Lord Dhanvantari. Karunamai liked the Dhanvantari emerging out of the ocean of milk in our healing room so much. She's like an incarnation of Divine Mother who came and stayed here for a couple of times. She insisted on having one bought for her. She wanted one exactly the same as Alakananda had. And she's like, oh, it's so beautiful. So we want to have Dhanvantari in our healing space. We want to have representations of our lineage of teachers. So here at Alandi, we have Raghudas and Shirdi Sai Baba and Godavari Mataji, like the main teachers in our lineage in our space. We also always have a picture of Dr. Lad, because none of this would be happening without Dr. Lad. He's really the person that kind of gave up everything to bring Ayurveda to this country. So we always have a picture of him there, and it's faded so much from all the light in the healing room that we actually have one photo I was gifted, which is Alandi Ma, one of our beloved teachers, and her husband Dilipji with Dr. Love doing a fire ceremony. Like, this picture is too special because it's all of them together because they're actually friends. So yeah, we want to have teachers on the altar. Also can also be a place for crystals. I have my crystal wand in my altar, which really goes back to a long while ago, like maybe 30 years ago when I was like into using a crystal wand. But I made the crystal wand. It's actually made of a piece of copper pipe with a crystal at each end. And then I have one of those Guatemalan woven natural belts that I wrapped around it. So that's how I made my little crystal wand, but it's still there. I also have the the Aztec healing god. He looks very funny. Sadananda's like, that's a funny character. I'm like, that's the Aztec healing god. And that was gifted by a couple of geologists from Mexico who were patients for quite a long time. And they wanted to bring me the Aztec healing god. Can also be nice to have a tanka, especially to have a tanka of the medicine Buddha. And the medicine Buddha has a bowl with haritaki. Sometimes it's haritaki and sometimes it's amalaki, but has like a very key herb in his bowl and represents the awakened ideal of the healer. So yeah, you can have rocks, crystals, representation of your special place, however you want to make an altar. It can be a good thing to have in a healing room. Um, Therapy animals. In the care home place where Jane was staying, uh, they had therapy bunnies who who just like sat on a couch and with I guess they were therapy bunnies and you could cuddle them. Cats, of course, do not need to be trained to be therapy animals because they'll do that automatically. The really interesting story about a cat who wasn't our cat, a cat named Minnesota, who was she was called Minnesota because the person that did look after her found her in Minnesota. But she would come into our house a lot. This is when we lived in the downstairs part of the house. And that's where we only had those three rooms, so the healing room and the temple were combined. And I was sitting there with a patient, and the patient started crying and said, I feel so alone. And the moment she said that, Minnesota flew through the window, rushed over, and landed on her lap. So I think that cats are naturally uh, tending to want to be healers. But of course, you have to use your own discretion because there's always the issue that some people are allergic to whatever therapy animal you might want to have in your space. I used to think I was the weird person that had a cat in my healing space, but when I got hand therapy, it's a dog place. People bring their dogs, the staff bring their dogs, the staff dogs stay there, and people bring their dogs to hand therapy. And in fact, I've been in now several physical therapy offices where dogs are present and part of the mix. So it's not just me that is the weird person that has therapy animals. My old cat, Roger, was really into his job of being the healing room cat and sat on the chair at the door of the healing room as the greeter. And there's two things that a healing room cat can do. One is they can get on the lap of the patient to help the patient. The other thing they can do is decide, I'm not sure about this patient's energy. I'd better go cuddle up next to Alakananda and take care of her. So uh, a therapy cat can also protect you. So the therapy animals may be there, may not be there. If they are there, we have to be careful about people that could be allergic to them. But then we've got, the animal, vegetable, and mineral world, right? We've got your therapy animal, if they're going to be there. We've got the plants or the orchids. We've got the crystals, the bloodstones, Apache tears, whatever kind of minerals we want. I also really personally like rose quartz a lot. Think it will radiate a lot of love. And I like amethyst, which was recommended to me by Dr. Lard as a protection. So all of those things can be in your healing room. Then, of course, we have to think about how we're going to maintain the energy in our healing space, which is a place where people come and shed their load. So smudge can be really good. We're here in the Western United States where it is not difficult to gather our own sage and make our own smudge stick, or it's also not difficult to obtain smudge sticks. You do have to be careful with them. I actually set the house on fire one time with a smudge stick. um, I was very, very upset. I think it was about flies. And I was like waving the smudge stick around trying to get rid of flies, and it was in our bedroom, which at that point was downstairs, where we now have the storeroom. So we had our futon there, and a tiny spark fell down on the futon. And then we were all upstairs, and then smoke started coming through the vents. And there was an actual fire with flames in that room, and it was just from one teeny tiny spark. The futon had to be replaced, and a beautiful handmade quilt was gone, and the cat had also been shut. The old cat was shut in that room and got out just in time. So, the fire in the room, also, there's another whole story about the fire in the room that I'll tell in just a minute. But I then learned that you have to have an abalone. So next time we went to powwow, I got the opportunity to purchase an abalone. So don't ever just wave a smudge stick around without an abalone or some other suitable holder for it, because you don't want it dropping sparks. You don't want incense dropping sparks. You can use incense in your healing space, but generally, I don't have incense lit in the healing space when the patients are there, because a lot of people are sensitive. So it's more like something you would do afterwards. Sadananda likes to do a practice that we learned about from some of the Muslim fakirs in Pune, where they would go around the entire bazaar with like a thing of incense, and they would go in each shop and like bless or cleanse or add sparkle to each shop with their incense, and everyone gave them a small few paisa, small donation for going around blessing everyone with incense. So Sadanand will go like all around the house, same way with frankincense and myrrh, which not only on a subtle level cleans the place, but actually is cleaning viruses, bacteria, You're cleaning the air. It's fumigating, which is the old-fashioned way of cleaning the air. Now we also do use the air purifiers as well, but it's nice to have the age-old way of fumigating the air. We can purify with water, by having that fountain, or when I did used to have a fountain, I would put flower essences in my fountain. So then that flowing water flowing with flower essences is purifying the air. You can also have a spray of flower essences. So flower essences are completely different from essential oils. You can help to purify your room with a spray bottle of essential oils, blend in a carrier oil or even mixed in, emulsified in water that you can spray around. Flower essences are completely different. They don't have any smell. You've passed Avogadro's limit. There's nothing there except water. So what I've done at different times is douse a formula of flower essences. When I get really ambitious, I have a formula douse for each room that's going to like create the exact right energy for that room. And then you can have it in a little spray bottle, and you can spray that around to like enhance the energy to be the way you want it in your room. One of the topmost ways to purify the atmosphere is to do Agnihotra, which is the fire that is done with cow dung in a copper pyramid pot that's done at sunrise and sunset. And it radiates energy not only at the times when you do it, but if you keep that copper pyramid pot there with sharp the points are sharp, they shouldn't be dented or bent or anything. That pot is always radiating energy throughout the house. So according to Sri Gajanan Maharaj, who taught us this practice, it's purifying the atmosphere. Obviously, on one level, again, it is literally fumigating. They've done experiments like leaving out bread in a room where Agnihotra is or isn't done and seeing how the bread molds less if you're doing Agnihotra, because it's that cow dung smoke is literally physically cleansing molds and unwanted things from the atmosphere, but mainly, importantly, it's balancing the pranas. Because we live in a world of rampant aggression and unbalanced prana. So we want to create a healing atmosphere. They've also, our friend Barry Ratner, he got his master's degree at Pune University, and his thesis was about creating healing through Agnihotra by having, one of the things he did was have Agnihotra and Om Trayambakam Homa being done not in the child's room, but in the room adjacent to the child's room. So the child isn't having to breathe the smoke while they're sleeping, but the child is exposed to that atmosphere, and the child would like get better from any like psychological disturbances. I think another one he did was having Agnihotra done again in the adjacent room to his therapy room, and seeing the results of therapy if you did or didn't do Agnihotra in the adjacent room and how it went better. So you can really, by using Agnihotra and Om Trayambakam Homa, which is where you have a flame, you're burning cow dung, and you're offering ghee, and you're repeating the healing mantra, Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandham Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityo Mokshi Yamamritat Swaha. So you're cleaning the atmosphere that way, and it creates a very wonderful healing energy. I remember recently we met Sarai. She's all grown up now. She graduated college. She's really grown up, but we've known her since before she was born. And one time we came down to the temple when she was very little, and she and her friend Mira had put pieces of cow dung in the Agnihotra pot. They hadn't lit it, but they had a spoon, and they were like spooning over the cow dung, going swaha, 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 because they saw that Mummy, her mum, Amaya, did that, and it made Mummy happy. And Mummy found it important and satisfying. So it was obviously something important to do. And there is a whole story about the fire that we had in the bedroom, because the fire happened in the bedroom right before Malidoma and Subamfu Some, who at the time were still married to each other and are teachers from West Africa. They were coming to do a workshop on like healing ancestral patterns and working with ancestors. So they arrived, the fire happened. Then a couple of days later, I came into the temple and candles were lit and burning, which none of us had lit. Maybe the little boy came and lit them, we don't know. And then we also, at that time, it was during Navaratri or in between, it was in between Navaratri and Diwali, so Sadananda was keeping a perpetual fire. Like he would do at least some yagna, some fire ceremony outside every day, and then he would bank it with the ash. And then he would like pull out a coal and get it going again each day. So we actually had a fire going. But there was a knock at the door, and some people in very strange uniforms and not showing any badges said, "Do you have any fire here?" It wasn't lit at the time, it was bagged. So I said, no, we don't have any fire. I mean, we don't have any fire. There's like three things that happen with fire, right? First the fire in the bedroom, then the candles that nobody was aware of having lit, and then some kind of fire department showing, and then it disappeared. So then we told this whole story to Malidoma Some, who's the author of Water and the Spirit. And he just listened to our story and didn't say anything. And then at the end of the entire workshop, he interpreted our story. And he said, actually, the Kutumble came. And they're asking you, do you have the ancestral fire? And is this a place for us? And because the answer was yes, we have. We have the ancestral fire. We have the fire from thousands of years. When we get to do Agnihotra, when we get to do Homa, we are so extremely lucky because we are part of a tradition that goes back thousands upon thousands of years and that formerly was restricted only to special people. I wanted to finish up with a very interesting, one of my favorite things from Jnaneshwari. So Jnaneshwari, also known as the Bhagavata Deepika, is a translation and commentary on Bhagavad Gita written by Sant Jnaneshwar. You've seen Sant Jnaneshwar's picture every time you go to the temple, a picture of a statue of him, because photography wasn't invented 700 years ago. So it's a picture of a statue of him wearing a turban. And he lived to be, I think it was only 21, but he dictated this entire book, which was, so up until then, only those who spoke Sanskrit could read Bhagavad Gita, and even they didn't really understand it. So he dictated this entire translation and commentary of Bhagavad Gita in the Marathi language, which is the local language of that part of India, that like biggest chunk of India. And it's actually the first time that the Marathi language was written down and had literature. So it's the first time that Marathi really became elevated as a language was the Jnaneshwari. So in chapter 6, he talks about meditation. So he's actually talking about setting up your meditation seat. But I think so many parts of it are relevant to also to setting up your healing room. It should be a place where you can sit comfortably and you don't desire to get up. And when you see it, your intention to dispassion will increase. The place should be one frequented by saints, which would induce a feeling of contentment and fill the mind with courage, which is, we've been really lucky here because so many, not only Karunamai, Shivarudra Bala Yogi, Swami Paramananda's guru, a number of teachers have come here, or a number of friends have brought their gurus here. So we have been very lucky in it being a place frequented by saints. Such a place should be very beautiful. And even if an unbeliever wanders in there, he would still feel a strong inclination to start spiritual practice. And if a pleasure-loving person chanced to come that way, he wouldn't think of returning to the life of worldly desire. A sensuous person beholding it would experience such delight, he would be willing to sacrifice even a kingdom for the sake of resting there. This does remind me of a funny story, that this one woman, young woman, showed up for kirtan one day. We didn't expect her, so we actually weren't ready, and she didn't want to wait, and blah, blah. She was really into herself and her appearance, and she found the place really, really beautiful, and she loved it. And she was taking selfies outside the dome with like her uh, skirt hitched up to show her knees, and like kind of like flaunting her body. I'm like, she is like taking photos of flaunting her body in front of a yogi's hermitage. This is like super bizarre, but it happened. Um, she probably posted the photos, but luckily we haven't run into them. Like, um, so she represented the pleasure-loving person experiencing delight. Uh, it should be frequented by seekers of yoga. It should be surrounded by a grove of shady trees, which have roots as sweet as nectar and which are always bearing fruit. Here and there should be streams, clear even in the rainy seasons and the floods, with springs nearby. The air should be not hot but cool. We don't always accomplish that. And gentle breezes should blow softly over it. Quiet should reign there. And there shouldn't be parrots nearby, but you can have swans floating on the water. You could have cranes. You could have cuckoos, occasionally peacocks. You have peacocks too. He doesn't want the peacocks all the time because they're always going, moo, 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 which is why peacocks are called moo in Hindi. So he'd like to just see them sometimes, but not when you have to listen to them all the time. It should be a secluded hermit. There should be a secluded hermitage nearby, or a temple of Shiva. So that is Yeah, and one should seek out such a place, and if it is felt to be suitable, the seat for meditation should be set up there. It's really talking about where you set up your seat of meditation, but it's a very, I just love this passage. It's so beautiful and poetic and typical of the way that Sadhyaneshwar writes, or he didn't really write, he dictated all this, like this poetry flowing out of him. But it's also just, it's very beautiful, and it could also as well describe how we want to have our healing space. All right.
Thank you for tuning in to Ayurveda and Spirituality with Alakananda Ma. We hope today's exploration has ignited a spark of curiosity and insight within you. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and share it with a friend. For more enlightening discussions and practical wisdom on Ayurveda and spirituality, subscribe and join our Facebook group, Alandi Ayurveda. To allow us to continue sharing valuable content, consider donating to Alandi Ashram. The links will be in the show notes. Until next time, may you walk the path of Ayurveda with grace and embrace the light of spiritual wisdom in your journey.
Trayambakam yajamahe sugandhim pushtivardanam urvarukamiva bandhanam mrityormukshi